Now, let's do one that's going to fall over here. That's got a square root in it. So, number 2. Let's do m squared minus 5m plus 3 equals 0. Now, let me go ahead and tell you, this one will not factor at this point, and you can't do it by square roots because it's got an m squared and an m. So, at this point, you could not work number 2. So, what's A?
A equals m squared.
No. A is what's in front of the m squared. A is 1. B is -5, and C is the positive 3, the 3. M equals, we're solving for M, so you need to put your variable there. Now, my quadratic formula is going off the page, but yours is up there at the top. So the first thing is the opposite of B. I like opposite because the opposite of -5 is +5. And I'm going to put a plus there for emphasis. And then you're going to put your plus or minus because that determines the two answers. Now put your big square root. Now I'm going to show you another trick. If you just put -5 like this and square it, I want you to look at me. Everybody look. If you write it like that and you type that on your calculator, it's going to give you the wrong answer. Because when it says -5 squared, when it says b squared here, you're squaring the entire b. And -5 squared is -5 times -5. My suggestion, you do one of two things. You can put parentheses around it, which you have to do on your calculator, or I have never seen b such a number that I couldn't go ahead and square it. And I know -5 times -5 is going to give me 25. This is always going to be positive. So if you want to go ahead and skip writing like we did here, 3 squared, see, you could have gone on and put 9 there. And I'm going to tell you, your mathematical life will be better if you go ahead and do that, because then you don't get points off and you don't miss all the problems. And I checked that. If you put a -5 squared without the parentheses, I don't care what you type on your calculator, it's not going to give you the right answer. So I would encourage you there to go ahead and just square your b. Now, -4, a is 1, c is 3, and then all of that, it's a common denominator, is over 2 times 1. Now, look, all you're going to have to do, we're going to go over here and we're going to put +5 plus or minus radical over 2 times 1 is 2. I need you to type 25 minus 4 times 1 times 3. $13. Now, do we know the square root of 13? Yeah, it's prime number, and it's accurate. Well, I won't even say prime, because I can say square root of 12 and it's still not going to break down. I mean, it would break down, but it's not a perfect square. So, I mean, I could say, I'm trying to think of one, like square root of 22. Square root of 22 is not prime, but it is irrational. So it's the idea that the square root of 13 is an irrational number. So it falls, these answers fall into this category. Now, a lot of times they will leave them like this, but sometimes they will reduce. And Ms. Newberry started, I don't know what Coach Teichman does, but we're going to do like we did up here. We're going to separate these. Well, we're actually just going to separate them into 2 fractions. This is more like what we did. Let me show you. I think it was before Christmas. It was these. Remember when we had something like, here's a good one. When we got 48 minus 8 squared root of 3 over 33, then we would separate them into 2 fractions and reduce them. And that's what we're going to do. So we're going to write that 5/2, which won't reduce, plus or minus the square root of 13 over 2. Now, whether they write it like this or like this, the two answers are 5/2 plus the square root of 3 over 2 and 5/2 minus the square root of 3 over 2. And we'll talk about those decimals and all of that when you do it on your calculator. You'll kind of see, because your calculator will actually give you what the two answers are as decimals. Sometimes it gives us fractions. Sometimes it gives them as fractions if they're rational. If they're irrational like this, I think it gives them to us as decimals. Okay, number 3. Let's do 5k squared.
Wait, so if it's irrational, you want us to write write it how you wrote it on number 2?
Just separate them.
Oh.
We're gonna do some more. We'll do some more. And it's gonna do the same thing with i's too, because i's are square roots. They're square root of -1. So if it's not perfect squares, like if that number is not a perfect square, you're gonna have to separate it like this. If it's a negative number, or if it's a 20 that you can break down. I'm actually gonna do a couple like that. So I think we will cover all the bases here in just a minute. Let's do 5k squared minus 10k plus 10 equals 0. I believe all your problems are already set equal to 0, if I'm not mistaken. So A is 5, B is -10, and C is +10. We're solving for K. K equals. The opposite of -10 is +10. And if you want to put a plus there, just to make your life easier, that would be great. +10 plus or minus big square root. Now, let's go ahead and square that. What would -10 times -10 be?
100.
Yeah, let's go ahead and put 100. We don't have to put parentheses. We can just go ahead and square it. -4 times A, which is 5, times C, which is 10, all over 2 times 5. Now, I'm going to go ahead and do the 10 plus or minus. I'm going to do the radical, and I'm going to put the 10 on the bottom. Now, you're going to tell me what the 100 minus 4 times 5 times 10 is.
It'd be 100.
No, it's not. Go do it
Oh,
again.
no, it'd be 0.
Do it again. You're guessing. Type it.
No. Are you
100, type that right there. 100 minus 4 times 5 times 10. Type it.
Oh, -100.
-100.
I knew
Now,
it was one of those.
I know, but that makes a huge difference because this is going to be now, look at your answers. This is the first time we've had one. It's going to be an imaginary answer. Because if you got square root of -1, your two answers are going to be out
Like
here.
On lesson 29, it just says whenever you go like -100, it's like when you type in your calculator, it's 0. Like it says error mode. So
Yes, because we haven't put your calculator in the mode to do,
because it's
but we're going to do that Wednesday too. So we're good to go.
It's say undefined.
It says, and I think it says because it's a real number or not a real number or something. Yeah, but we're gonna fix that too.
Okay.
So now we can break that down. So look what we're going to do. Let's do the top first. 10 plus or minus. Now, can you do that in your head? What's the square root of -1?
I.
Yeah, I, remember. And what's the square root of 100? So it's going to be 10i. Everybody look. See, that's your top. Now, if you want to save you some steps, go ahead and distribute that 10. So if it's i's or got a radical left in it, you want to go ahead and distribute it. Now let's reduce those. See, that one down there didn't reduce. 5, see this one, that was it. But this one, what's 10 over 10?
1.
Plus or minus. Now what about 10i over 10?
Oh, 1. Oh,
I, yeah, one I or just I. Now, that's in complex. Look at your two answers. One of them is 1 plus I, and the other one is 1 minus I. That's the way the ACT writes them. I don't know if I mentioned that to you the other day. They don't write them like this. They separate them, and your two answers are 1 plus I and 1 minus I. They are conjugates of each other. I remember that term from back before Christmas. And also, they come in pairs. Like, if this one is an answer, then the conjugate of it's an answer. There's a lot of things that tie in with that.